For sure.
Yeah.
So, Maestro Jim.
Maestro J.
It's really good to have you on the podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
I watched the last one with Zion, and it was awesome. I was supposed to be working, and I've got that.
Just
thing.
have it in the background.
I just had it in the background, and of course, I get interested in what you guys are saying. I'm like, oh, that's right. I gotta focus.
That's how I feel like when I do something like the dishes or folding laundry. I just put something like that on.
Right?
And,
I could listen to it for days. It's fun.
Yeah. So, you're an interesting guy.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You're an interesting guy, especially for like being affiliated with kind of the HEMA crowd, the classical world, the sport world.
Yeah.
You're kind of, I think, in a lot of ways, a misfit for.
Oh, I'm absolutely
right.
No, it's true. And what's funny is I have the unique ability of being a misfit in all three.
Right. In everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I could let bother me, but I think it's kind of liberating.
It means you're doing something right.
Well,
like doing something authentic.
Or, yeah. I mean, that's how I'd like to think of it.
What they say, I think it was Brene Brown that said it, and she's one of the best people to quote on this stuff. Was that like fitting in with other people? It means that you're giving up parts of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like a real relationship, it demands authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're having if you think about fencing as a relationship with it, and you want to be authentic, it means that sometimes you're going to have to make tough calls.
No, it's true.
And disagree with tough opinions.
It's true. And and I don't know, I didn't plan it that way. It just kind of worked out that way. And it's, what's funny to me is when I started in the sport, I was kind of a misfit there too. I loved it and I had a great time and I learned lots of great stuff. But, it was I was like a 3-year-old asking why. Why? Why do we do this technique this way? And it drove some coaches mad. Like, who cares? Just do it. And like the classical movement, the modern classical movement that grew out of that in the mid to late 90s, it's kind of a weird Wild West. There were a couple figures that were well known, not necessarily well liked. And like collectively, they had a lot of interesting things to say, and they started talking about texts and stuff. And then there's sort of the proto-HEMA stuff that was happening. And, I've been lucky to kind of be a misfit in all of those.
Well, I mean, you almost have to be, when you think about HEMA and classical fencing, you almost have to be a character to do it. You almost have to be a defiant oppositional person to say, I'm just not going to do what everybody else is doing. I'm going to do something different. It takes somebody like that to start it.
It does. And, I think, I'd like to think I'm not adversarial or confrontational. I'm comfortable with those things. I've kind of had to be, but it's, I think, one of the reasons I never kind of put on a uniform, right? I never went whole hog on the classical thing, and I never went whole hog on historical. I mean, if anything, the closest I got was probably the sport.
Yeah, when you were young.
Yeah, because I was young, and it was just, that's what I did.
Yeah.
The nice thing about that is that for all the people that are like, well, you're a bad fit here, or I don't like what you're doing, there are a lot of people that you meet that are kind of more like you. That'll be like, what are you doing over there? That looks interesting. Let's talk about that. And then I get to say, well, what are you doing over there? And then we get to talk about that. And so I feel like it's been a really, in terms of building a culture of your own, and sort of I forget who said it, but family, friends are the family you choose for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I've been really fortunate to meet some great people, and those have been some of those really lasting relationships. And I think one of the things that keeps it that way is we're all still trying to figure it out, and we know that we never will, but we like trying.
Yeah.
And we benefit collectively because, it's like talking to you, taking lessons with you, or Zion, or Patrick. It's, or my buddy John when I'm in California, or Dennis back home. I always learn something, and there are different views on things. They run drills differently than I did.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Some of them don't like what I do either. So for example, our drill today, if you watch my footwork, it's all over the place. Well, yeah, because I'm not worried about my footwork.
Right. Yeah, it's coaching footwork.
It's
it doesn't
coaching
matter.
footwork, right?
It's whatever doesn't hurt you.
Yeah, right. I'm like, okay, I've got a bad leg. You know, I've got so much time before my arm gives out.
Yeah.
Let's just go down the list. But the goal was like, okay, I'm gonna like throw different things at Jay, and as long as that happens, I don't care what I look like.
Yeah.
You know, and that again, so people are like, ooh, you know, your form looks very bad there. It's
as a coach, yeah, it's
like,
irrelevant.
okay, you know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry you didn't like that.
Yeah, my coach was 70 with ALS and couldn't move, and
Right?
like you would not judge his form. His blade work was perfect. Yeah, it's irrelevant.
He did what he could do.
Yeah.
Right. And I had the second master I worked with, Al, he had a fused hip 50 years before I met him. He didn't move very fast. Yeah. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
And was absolutely terrifying when he decided to pour it on, like, even though he's hobbling towards you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I that is to say that when it comes to like fitting a mold, you know, I was never a good classical fencer because I wasn't clean enough. I didn't care enough for the form. Like, to me, the form's a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't serve that end, then I don't care about it.
Right.
Right. And that's not to poo-poo that. If that's your thing, do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people like sort of the more, it's a way of expressing yourself. Right?
Well, for a while I felt the same way, or I felt kind of similar to the classical people, which was form was something that I focused on a lot. And then, you know, my coach would say it's irrelevant, and I still did it anyway. Right.
Yeah.
But then I got to the point where, you know, having some injuries that you're recovering for, you realize just how irrelevant that it is. Like, and it's there to guide you. Right.
Yeah.
But if you have 1,000 different fencers, you have 1,000 different lunges, and it's meant to be that way.
Well, and everybody's different. And so, you know, I think one of the things that as a coach, like a new student, I'll hit form a lot harder because it's a new way of moving for them. It's a new way of standing. That's an appropriate time to do that.
Yeah. The mechanics are the base layer.
Right? But then, like, I also work with people of ages like basically 10 and up. My oldest student is 70. Mm-hmm. No, I take that back. My oldest student was 76.
Right.
Right. And he's got mobility issues.
Right.
Tom is not going to lunge.
Mm-hmm.
He can't. So he steps. I've got students of different like weight classes, and you know, some of the guard positions are difficult depending on what they're doing. You know, I've had bodybuilders, people with just larger chests, and so like some of the cross parries this way, they can't do them. So I'm like, well, move your hips instead.
Right.
Right. Just turn at the torso. There's a way to adapt.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily going to follow the format that's, you know, etched in stone for some people. And I think that's okay.
Well, I think it's actually good, especially as historical fencers. It's like you realize like there's so many different ways of doing things, and when you kind of study them all and you see them, and it's like, okay, there is no right or wrong.
No, there's right or wrong according to that person.
Yeah.
And those are fun
texts. There's maybe better and worse, right?
And there are
like
better
things
and
that
worse,
work better and
right?
things that maybe don't. But
it, you know, if part of it, sort of the you know, my democratic way of looking at this is I want everyone to be able to fence. Mm-hmm. And there are cases where it's hard for people, but even with people with different disabilities, they've found ways for these people to fence.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, that to me is that's the first part. If you have an interest, and then it's kind of like, well, what's your style? Mm-hmm. You know, I've got some students who are really into theater, and so they really like to ham it up. Mm. And so when we're talking about it, like, I don't teach the theatrical fencing, but I'm like, I've studied a little bit, and I know people that do teach it. And I was like, well, look, you know, if you're doing what we're doing, you can kind of turn this a certain angle and make it bigger. There are ways to do it, right? Yeah. But I don't teach that. I got to send you to them. But I don't know. It's the form. It's a good starting place, and then every fencer ends up making it their own. You know, I don't want fencers to come out looking just like me. Like, that's not the goal. I'm not producing little gems.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, this person is this tall and this fast. This person is, you know, this short and this slow, or whatever it is. What works for them? Mm-hmm. And so I try to give them the foundation to kind of figure that out and explore it.
Well, I mean, there's a very clear reason why each manual was different from each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look at Fiore, Vadi, right?
Yeah.
And just how it changed in one generation with that.
Right.
And you can think of like all of the Italian authors. Each one is different from each other.
Yeah. And there might be really small differences.
Yeah, small.
But the key things are the same. So like, if you look at the Rudelian corpus, like, the core parts of that are still there, but there's some variations in how they do it. You know, and some of the really old stuff, if you're going by like Del Frate, you know, some of the stuff he has disappears by 1885,
right,
in just 20 years. And so that says something. On the other hand, like his foil section wasn't great. That was not his strong suit. So you have other people who kind of build that up, you know, and in the aggregate, you get a much better picture. And I think that's the other reason for being kind of a misfit, is that I'm not stuck with what I read. You know, I don't have to just read stuff published by HEMA Press, or only the stuff that was published by the guys in the 90s doing classical, or only sports stuff. I can read them all.
Yeah.
And I don't feel any guilt about that, because, you know, my allegiance is to fencing versus a camp.
Yeah, you're not trying to just like recreate one specific source.
No, and even sources that I like a lot and spend a lot of time on, I'm kind of like a kid in a candy shop. I'll be like, oh, I really like, what's that? Right? And so I'll get excited about other stuff, you know, like broadsword. I've looked at those texts for a long time. I've experimented with it. I've, you know, done a little bit, like back in the day. I think when I first got to Oregon, I did a little George Silver, all kinds of stuff. And I really liked the stuff that you and Zion were doing. I was like, ooh. So I started spending more time on it. It's oddly enough less hard on my body.
Yeah.
So it's been a much better fit for me in terms of saber. You know, it's hard when you have to give up stuff you love, but you know, that's tough.
100%.
And I haven't had to give up yet, but I have to curtail a lot of what I do. And that was going to happen anyway. You know, being an idiot when I was younger, I think kind of accelerated that process. But you know, I'm a good example of what not to do in your 20s.
So a question for you is like, where do you see like HEMA, the movement, kind of heading towards?
Oh, that's a good question. So against my normal sort of pessimism, my native pessimism, I'm actually kind of excited to see what happens. I feel like there's been some, not quiet changes, but there are things that are happening that are, I think, good signs.
Okay.
For one, I think there's been a shift in how people feel about some of the other camps of fencing. So, for example, if you're watching some of the, like, a good example we were talking about earlier, some of the European competitions, you're seeing a lot more elements borrowed from the sport.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's not that those, like the flesh, for example, it's not that those aren't in text, because they are. Right. But the way that they're using them is much closer to what the sport does.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad. You know, if you've got textual support for it and it's working, and you're a competitive fencer, you know, competition, it's a, what's the word that we used earlier? It's like, it's not an artifice, but like, it's kind of its own thing. There are rules in competition. There are sort of these things that you agree to do by rule set. And that isn't going to necessarily reflect things the way a text does it. The context is different.
Oh yeah.
There's just so many differences, right?
It's not comparable.
It isn't. It's apples and oranges. And so,
and like, the other thing is that people's games change.
They do.
So when you're reading a manual, it's really like a snapshot of somebody's game that was really effective during their period.
Yeah.
And it was based on what other people were doing at the time. So it's like, if I'm attacking with a Zorn How or something like that, and that was like the big bad thing to do in the day, right? Then this is the game that they built around that.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Europe currently and you're getting hit by a lot of flashes, my style, it's developed, and we're going to focus a lot on defending the flash, not getting into the distance of range where people will use it effectively, right? Or maybe learning some tactical cues on like when to notice recognize somebody's putting their weight forward or when they're in a position to flash. That's good to know too, right?
Well, and I think, you know, like you made this point earlier, it's like there's nothing new under the sun. So we'll go through this sort of flesh crazy phase, and then that's going to morph into something else. And I think
you see that at your home gym, like every few months.
Yeah,
so
it's
like
true.
I got really into, for a little while, I was getting a lot of riposte to the leg, or I was getting a lot of feint, hit the leg. Yeah. And then guys catch on, and you're like, okay, it's not worth the risk right now. I'll come back to that in 6 months.
Yeah.
When your skills are a little bit rustier. That's how the competitive scene is.
Well, and it's the nature of competition.
Yeah.
You know, if you do the same thing every time, you're not going to go very far.
Yeah.
and you can't be predictable. And so when somebody learns your game, you got to switch it up, which is, again, I think one of the reasons that I think the broadening of vision within the historical community has been important, because, you know, it's just the way it goes. We have these sort of microcultures, you know, and so if you go to like the longsword scene here versus the longsword scene here, they both think what they're doing is longsword.
Yeah.
And they both are.
Right.
But you put them together and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't match. And I think that's good. Because they're like, okay, you know, they do it a little differently than we do. And, you know, they'll learn from us. But I want to think that in the aggregate, what happens with that is that you get better fencing. And there are elements of the sport that I think will improve competition. There are elements of the sport I really hope don't make it into competition. And
yeah, it's hard to say. Like the rule sets, they really impact your decision making.
They do.
And there's a lot of the rules where it's like, it can really negatively impact your decision making. It's not just about gaming them, but it's like optimal choices. So like here in Canada, there's some scenes that'll be like, okay, afterblow is full points. Right. And then you get people sacrificing their arm to hit the head.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I've done a tournament like that one time and I was like, I think I was 9-1.
Wow.
And I was like, I know that if in this match, if I just die for your leg, doesn't matter where you hit me. I'll end it and I'll get a little break before the next fight.
No, it's true.
I'm a little tired right now.
Hey, and these are
so I did it. I did it. And I got doubled. I'm like, it didn't matter. I couldn't lose. Right. And that was stupid. Like it was stupid, but I was really tired.
You're tired.
I wanted a break.
People do what they have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you see that in like right away competition. We were talking about that. Like in my view, it's like getting a Mario star when you have right away. You can just eat the double, and it's like it does nothing. It does nothing. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, at some point, there's an artificiality to all of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's just what you're choosing to emphasize.
Yeah.
And then I'll be honest. In some ways, I was kind of a late adopter of that point of view. You know, I got involved in classical and proto-historical because I was angry about rule changes in competitive saber.
Yeah. And justifiably.
Yeah, and justifiably. And you know, it's at the time I was Chicken Little. People are like, why are you so upset about this? Just adapt. And I didn't want to. And so I had to go. You know, I wasn't a good fit there. It was just frustrating for me. It was great for other people. They loved it. And, you know, I have friends who coach and compete to this day in Olympic, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't for me. You know, and I've gone back in phases. You know, I've taken classes from Olympic coaches, some really good ones. Like one of the best classes I've had was Handelman's Epee class during COVID. You know, and that was just charming in a lot of different ways. Like both Patrick and I work outside a lot, and we were in that class together. And I remember like Handelman, who's a classic, you know, coach, French trained, one of the first Americans, I think, to graduate from the French program in the 70s. He was like, you guys are outside and it's cold. Like there was snow at Patrick's place, right? And we're like, yeah, this is what we have.
Yeah.
Like we're going to fence. I don't care what the weather's like. We're going to do it. But I think like he was like, man, these guys are really dedicated. But it was also one of those things where I'd send in my homework, and the sort of, you know, rogues gallery of people I had for the class, some of them were sport, some of them were historical. And he's like, yeah, there's not a lot of consistency. You've got very different students here. I'm like, oh yeah, I do. So, you know, I got marked down for some homeworks because, you know, like, yeah, well, he's a longsworder and he's playing epee.
Right.
You know, he's new to this.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And going back to the original point though, I think, you know, that's an exciting thing for the community, that there's a more open approach to ways to learn. It's one of the things that interested me when, you know, you and Zion were talking to me about Storica. I was like, I really like what I'm hearing here, because it's something that you can either do or not do. Yeah. And its goal is pure and simple, just to help people out. And everybody needs it. You know, even if you're an experienced coach, you always need something new, because you just get tired. Yeah. You know, I
think even just having like a community to support you, that are people that actually have your best interests, that are people that are actually knowledgeable about the subjects. Like, it's really been like I don't know what to call it, a boon, a godsend, whatever you want to call it. Like, it's been a positive. It's just like having you guys, even from the first time we did it, looking over my coaching footage
Sure.
and being like, "This is what you're doing wrong," and it'd be like, "Of course, like I know that, but I need to hear it from somebody."
Because we all have those things.
Yeah,
like there's not a
blade presentation is too big.
Yeah,
tighten up
right?
the cues. You know, stuff like that.
And you have to. I think the other sort of big part of being a good coach is the humility that comes with it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care how good you are. There's always something you can fix.
Yeah.
And you know, my analogy for that, for a brief stint, I did some kendo, and it was super fun. But the guy I worked with, every year he goes to this retreat with his master, who's elderly. This was, 20 some years ago, so it's been a while. But he said the first thing his master does is fix his grip.
Right.
This guy is like a fifth Dan kendo guy. He's really well respected in the community. He's really good, but the first thing his master does is go over the basics,
most basic thing,
right?
Yeah.
And and it'd be easy to get on your ear about that and be like, dude.
Well, I mean, how many times have you heard, okay, more fingers? Like,
countless.
Yeah, you never stop hearing that.
And
it's just like in boxing. Yeah. How many times do people say hands up? It doesn't matter who you are, you'll drop your hands. You watch the best fighters in the world, when they get tired, they drop their hands.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, that, like you said, it's like a boon to the community to have people, this is, I guess, my plug for what we're doing, but there's not a selfish motive for it. If there is, it's that we want everyone to fence better, so it's more fun for everyone.
Right.
That's it. And because it's just true, that's a lot more interesting.
Yeah. Even like when you learn how to deliver a thrust properly, you learn how to cut and use your fingers. Like the safety levels just go up a lot higher. And I find that like they'll get real frustrated and they'll maybe do things like try to go faster, try to go harder. When it's like, guys, there's a simpler solution than that. It is harder to learn, but once you get there, you won't have to do those things.
Well, and there's proof in the pudding. Like one of the things that impressed me the first time I went to Saber Slash, I was using the swordsmithy because that's what they use. But Michael had used the same 6 sabers every year,
right?
And he'd been doing this for several years, and they're pretty banged up, but they don't have tips. There had been no injuries,
right?
And it's like, okay, this is interesting. And so the more that I got to know him and talk about it, it's because of the culture that they build there. Right?
Could not do that in a HEMA club.
You can't.
They'd be broken in a week.
They would be.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen. So going kind of to your point, like what's the difference? Why have those sabers not broken? Why hasn't anyone been spiked? And it's the control side. If you can use your fingers to manipulate that weapon, if you can make those cuts with more precision, you don't have to hit hard.
Yeah, especially when both people are playing like that, right? If you're at a tournament though, and maybe you're playing like that and the other person's not, chances are still pretty high of somebody getting hurt.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, the thing that I think, and I've been taken to task for talking about this. There's a local tournament. It's a good local tournament. I was unhappy with some of the safety stuff there. Otherwise it was great, but I think in some ways people were just ill prepared.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a worst case scenario person. So when I put something together, it's like, okay, what don't I want to see happen? What's the worst things that could happen? And my goal is, when we have like a medical person there, my goal is to make them as bored as possible.
Yeah.
And I state that from the outset. I'm like, I don't want them to have so much as have to get a Band-Aid out.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a reason for that. It's because most of these are working adults who really can't be concussed or have broken fingers at work the next day.
No.
And they shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't be a concern.
Just because it's so preventable in what we do. Like it's understandable in other martial arts.
Yeah, and it happens.
But it doesn't have to because we have good protective gear.
Yeah, we do. And I think we can't rely on the gear too much. And that's been, one of the issues we talk about a lot in where I live. That when the whole low gear sparring thing came out, right? Some of the guys I know, they don't fence in much at all. They never have because that's the way they were trained.
Yeah.
And they can do certain things.
But they still wear a jacket.
They still wear a jacket. They still wear a jacket, right? But even like with longsword, they may not wear much more than that.
Yeah.
But it's the nature of the way they fight. Now, they can't do that when they go to a tournament because no one else is necessarily going to fight that way.
No, nor should you really in a tournament.
Well, and it's, for me, especially being, in America, like there's the legal and insurance side of this.
Yeah.
One, you lose your insurance if you don't do these things.
Right.
And two, you don't want to be that club that's known for people getting hurt. Like that is just, it's not good.
Yeah.
And for me, I just, this is supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. If getting hurt's your thing, maybe find something a little different. I've got some friends in BJJ and they get mangled all the time. They love it. Now they won't like it in 20 years.
Yes.
But it's,
I've heard some, like when I was doing BJJ, man, and you hear somebody's shoulder pop or something like that from a Kimura, whatever. It's the most horrifying like yelp you hear from people, and you just know like you're probably gonna need surgery or something.
It's just, I mean, sometimes it's funny. Like I know a couple in Oregon, they both do jujitsu. It's a married couple, and then like I think the same week they both got black eyes. I'm like, sounds to me like it's couple portrait time, right? Yeah, it'd be so cool. Like get a nice photograph, and they both have a shiner. Like, I was like, it's a good story. Put that right over the mantle. But that's the reality. It's they've both been injured, and
and that's probably the best grappling sport you could ever do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and they've been doing it a while now. They're good. And for us, I think it's one of the other issues we face is that there's such a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. We've got wrestling, we've got short weapons, we've got long weapons, and that's hard to make, one of the things we don't have. And I think, in terms of like directions that HEMA is going, I think, one of the things we've struggled with is rule sets. I don't know if we'll ever have a unified one. It'd be nice, right? If the whole world could say, hey, we've agreed to this, but it's going to be really difficult to do.
Yeah. More likely than not leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah. With different
rule sets. And you'll join
a
league that has the rule set that appeals to you.
Yeah. And you'll probably do a few. You'll probably do a few that you like. And like these are the circuits that I like to visit. This is the way I like it.
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Because I think we need to make sure that, not to sound too pie in the sky, but representation is important.
Yeah.
I'm not a grappling guy. Mm-hmm. I like weapons for a reason. I want you to stay over there.
Yeah.
My buddy Alex likes short weapons because he wants to get in and hug you.
Right.
And then throw you on the ground. So there should be something for that group. Should be something for me and everybody in between. And so I think, the idea of leagues is a good idea. And in some ways that's kind of unofficial. Like
it's kind of happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you look at some of the stuff that's happening in Eastern Europe, it's kind of got a culture.
Yeah, like a lot of people are doing right away longsword now. Yeah, a lot of people are doing like continuous fencing, like what Francesco and Tim are doing.
Yeah.
And then you have like in Canada, like kind of like similar to SD rules are kind of being used across some provinces for broadswords. So it's kind of becoming at least a more common format.
It's a good format.
Yeah. It's a good format for point fighting, right?
It really is.
Again, it's not going to be for everybody.
No. Yeah, and that's okay. But I think, that those discussions about sort of, the direction that where are we going to go with all this? Mm-hmm. For a while, I wondered if HEMA would survive the mid 2000, like that 2015, 2017, because it kind of hit this point, at least in the States, where there were a couple big events and there were more that were getting started than COVID hit, and something's disappeared. And it's like,
something new's come up. And I think it's like, it's problematic in some ways. Mm-hmm. Like it definitely has a negative side, but it's definitely more like the sport has won, like sportification happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The majority, I think there's a lot of isolated clubs or even not isolated clubs. There's people that what they're realizing is the sport guys were right in that it's not going to affect you. Like it's not going to change anything for you. You can still do anything that you want to do.
And that's the beauty of it. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas,
but it's just social currency has moved towards the sport world right now.
Yeah, and that may shift again.
Yeah.
One of the things I think about with this, I was just fencing at this club in California for a while, and there was a guy there that kind of coached off and on, and he came in one day and he saw our gear, and this was like 1999, 2000, and he looked at my saber, and I had this old American Fencer Supply Pecoraro, which I still have, and I had like a Schlager blade in it because we didn't have anything else.
Yeah, yeah. That was the best.
That was the best we could do.
Yeah.
And he's like, not regulation guard, weird blade. And he was like, you're never going to get into competition with that. And I was like, I don't compete. He's like, oh, and it kind of struck him as like, oh, you're just a recreational fencer.
Right.
Kind of this snooty thing. And, I could care less what he thinks. I don't know the guy. But I was like, yeah, man, I used to compete. It's not really for me anymore. And I've been reading these, like, I think I was reading Cold Steel.
Yeah.
A couple of things.
Yeah.
We were going through all the stuff you usually look at.
Of course, yeah.
And I was comparing that with Barbasetti, which
kind
is
of
what I started
proto-HEMA stuff.
Yeah. And so I think we got it we looked at some of Henry Angelo, like a lot of different stuff that was just floating around.
Yeah.
And, he watched what we were doing and he's like, oh, you're not allowed to hit the legs in saber. And I'm like, yeah, but it's in this text and we're working, like, trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because we've never hit the legs, right? You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, gatekeeping, I guess, is maybe one way to look. I don't like that word, but he had a very defined idea what fencing is. It is competition, and if you're not doing that, you're not a real fencer.
Yeah.
That's fine. He could do what he likes, but I don't want anyone telling me, you can't do it this way.
Yeah.
And I think in historical fencing especially, that's a really difficult thing to do because there really is, it's not just that there's such a variety of systems and weapons, but it's interpretive.
Yeah.
We have a lot of different interpretations and some end up kind of becoming standard, although that's dangerous in and of itself in some respects.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you see that kind of like is you'll get a community of experts.
Yeah.
They have a really hard time when things change.
They do.
Yeah.
And I think, that's one of the things, again, not to, plug SD, but it built in is an awareness that there are going to be different interpretations.
Yeah.
And that's good.
It's kind of essential for research.
Because if you don't, it just becomes dead in the water.
Yeah, it's not honest anymore.
Yeah, and I don't care how much training you have. I don't care how much expertise you have. You're dealing with stuff that, let's say it's a 200-year-old broadsword text, right? We haven't done most of that type of fighting for 200 years.
Yeah.
Now there are some outliers, like the stick looking in Barbados.
Yeah, totally.
But
it's still changed since the original.
Changed a little bit, right? There's a different tool, and that's fine also. But I think as well as we can read those because it's in English, right? As much as we hear words we know and understand, like, oh, okay, that's a beat. This is a feint. There are certain general things we can say about that.
Yeah.
But if I go, and say this is exactly what Thomas Page meant,
can't know.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah.
There's a certain, I think, just respect for the fact that it's like, look, we get to engage these texts and try to figure them out. But you built into that is the sense that, like, we may never have the answers. And I think the farther you go back, the more true that is.
Yeah. I would almost say you can't have the answers.
Yeah. I really
it's not
don't.
even that we don't know, and we never will know.
And and that, even living with some of the living traditions that I've worked with and had the opportunity to study, I know my context is different.
Oh yeah.
I went through the mid-century game at its last breath before everything went different.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than the context my masters had or the masters they had. Mm-hmm. And I know that. And so, yes, there's a lineage there, but like contexts have changed.
Yeah.
And so, there's a humility there again. Yeah. You just have to kind of know.
I think there's a lot lost and gained.
There is.
From that, yeah.
And I think, as those elders pass on, it's the cycle. Mm-hmm. At some point, luckily, we'll be those guys, right? And they'll be like, man, those guys have learned a lot and they shared it as best they could. But it's the cycle of people that stick with it and keep going. And I think, we do our best to contribute. But that's just one of the things that I think gets expressed, at least in competition, is that we do have these different rule sets that emphasize different issues. So that'll be fun to watch.
Well, this kind of segues into another kind of discussion, which was, we're talking about elders, about people passing knowledge about masters, is a question about like what would make a historical fencing master. So like, and this is just to preface it, is the reason I ever got interested in that was because of what you wrote about it years ago. Yeah. You'd sent me that article that you wrote. Yeah. Or I don't know if you sent it or if I found it.
I think it might be the one on the website.
And probably both.
Maybe.
I probably read it too. And then you sent it to me later in a conversation. I reread it again. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But it was kind of your idea of like, what could that look like? And it was like, explain how to do that in the right way.
Well, because it's a dangerous word, right? And I think, I'm assuming this is probably similar for Canada, but like in the US, there's, everybody's idea of master is kind of formed from Kung Fu theater.
Yeah.
And
in Canada, it's not used in our program.
Yeah.
So the highest you can get is an advanced coaching diploma, which is like, it's almost like having a postdoctorate or something.
Yeah, and I see the merit of that. I think, I think we can go too far either way.
Yeah.
For me, and I think, not everyone's going to want to read that thing. I've been told I'm too wordy, so that's fine. I'll give them the condensed version here. I think it's hard to create a master of a past system because they're gone. You can't, and if you try to do it, in my opinion, it's kind of disingenuous.
Well, you can't be like a master of Armazari.
How would you?
Yeah.
You could be the master of an interpretation, a modern interpretation of it, but that's a very sticky thing to do.
Right.
So,
like, I couldn't say I'm a historical broadsword master.
No.
Or I'm a period broadsword master.
No,
right?
You could be a fencing master that studies broadsword and specializes in it.
Yeah.
So,
So what you're a master really of is coaching.
Of coaching. And I think, people forget, a master doesn't have to be some 80,000-year-old guy with a long beard that's also a complete badass. Like, that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Traditionally, masters are teachers.
Yeah, and some of them don't ever fence, ever.
And some of them don't fence particularly well.
Yeah.
But they're amazing coaches, and they can teach you those fundamentals, and they can get that fencer where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at guys like Freddie Roach or Teddy Atlas, like the best boxing coaches in the world. Yeah. They were like mid-level competitors a lot of the time, or they were good. Like they're good. To make it in pros, you have to be good. You have to be advanced, right?
Right.
But they became the best trainers in the world.
Yeah, and it's about an understanding of the game. Like for myself, like in terms of misfitting, I don't think I'm the best competitor. I wasn't when I was competing, and I don't think I'm the best coach.
Yeah,
but I know that, and I try to be better at both. Like I try to improve my own game, and I try to be a better coach.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly got to a level. Like, one thing you can say for certain is you got to a level where people that are very respectable masters consider you a master.
Yeah, and I'm very honored by that, right? And that, I think when I was in Prague this last year in testing, like the gravity of that kind of hit me one night.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
well,
dang.
even the fact that people from far away, where you don't live, would take the time of being like, Jim deserves this, or we'll
take a chance on this weird American kid that wants to go, old man that wants to go there and like study with us. And I think, that was kind of the thing that when Michael and I talked about it, he was like, I think initially we're just like, he wants to work with us. Okay, that's neat. But, and it was a good fit for me because, the first text I grabbed when I went, like I left competition, was my library's copy at my uni of Barbasetti.
Right.
It's the first thing I read.
Right.
And it was a hard read.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, man, because I know what some of this stuff is, but why is this an Italian guy and he's using French terms? I'm confused. Oh, wait, this was published in German originally? And it took me a long time. And like, even now, I'm still trying to figure out Barbasetti, right? So I've got interpretations of it and I'm trying to share that with people. But you get back to like, okay, well, Michael might do it a little bit differently. Leonid might do it a little bit differently.
Right.
But in the aggregate, we're on the same page for most of that. And what that comes down to is how you coach. One of the other, I think, benefits of that program, if I may kind of praise it for a second, is that it's got a very close relationship with the sport.
Right.
So both Josef and Michael Zoltz, for example, they've had a foot in the Olympic world as well. Leonid too, Michael as well. And so, they really run the gamut from the sport through the theater company there at this school. So
so it's like sport, historical, classical, and theater.
It's all of them.
Yeah, and that's such an interesting model.
It's a great model, and it's not easy to do. I mean, I think, there are probably places in the world where it's easier to do. Like Prague is probably one of those places. Like Paris is another. You've got
Italy is similar. Like
Italy is similar.
Before I even went to Laura's class there, they had a different coach doing sport fencing with kids.
Oh,
right before in the same gym. Yeah. And then the historical fencing took on after, and it was stage combat and historical combat.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's all right there.
Well, and it's like some of the French programs I've paid attention to. Like you've got competitive fencers, and then you've got like the guys who do the artistic fencing, like the theater fencing.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the HEMA groups.
Yep.
You know, and there's a fair amount of crossover.
Oh yeah, like even for myself, so we ran a sport fencing, classical, and historical.
Oh, cool.
But a bunch of our students have all been involved with theater and acting and film. And it's like, man, if I had the knowledge, and I don't, I've done theater, I grew up doing it.
Sure.
Didn't do much stage combat other than like maybe 2 fight scenes in my life on theater, and it was fun. But I think if you had that, I think you draw in another crowd too.
You would, and it brings in different energy, different talent. And I think that's a plus. So like the fact that they were willing to take a chance on me, you know, I made a formal application to the school, and I didn't know if they were going to say yes or no. I mean, I really didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very fond of Leonid, but like when I first met him, he was not happy to see me. You know, he said, "So you're the big deal from the U.S." I'm like, "Well, I'm from the U.S. I'm not a big deal. You call home that they don't know who I am."
That's awesome.
You know, but we got talking, and I really love the guy.
Yeah.
He's really cool, and he's got a deep knowledge base.
Yeah.
And he's funny too. He's got a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
So
I've only seen him in videos, and I have him as a friend.
Yeah,
but he seems like it. Like I really enjoyed it.
You would really enjoy.
Yeah.
That whole school. I mean, again, I'm probably a little biased, but there's a really friendly group of people, and one of the things I like about their events is it draws a pretty diverse crowd in. You know, you get sport fencers, you get people who are a little bit more reenactment.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some of the people that go to it, and it's like that's cool how they've united. Like. And then the instructors they get, it's like people who sometimes, like, at least from what I've seen, might never work together. Yeah. And they're all there getting along. Well, and that's cool to see.
Everyone is, like, one of the things that really got me, I finally got to meet Leo Marianowski. And he does a lot of stuff. I can't pronounce the name of his city. Every time I try, Poles laugh at me. It's WROCLAW. However that's pronounced.
Yeah, I won't try either.
One of my students is Polish, and when I tried to say it, she's like, "Are you trying to say this?" I'm like, "Yes."
That's the one.
Well, like when they came down, they do mounted like winged hussar stuff.
Right.
And it was amazing to see this guy in armor teaching this class about how to cut when you've got stuff hanging up behind you.
Right.
And the entire class, masters included, is just eating it up. And it's different than what they do, but it's interesting. And it's partly experimental, like historical archaeology type, you know, trying to figure out stuff out. Partly it's based on what they know. But there was room for everyone there. And the amount of mutual respect. And I think that was the other thing about, you know, if you're creating any kind of master's program for a historical thing, built into that has to be this awareness that you're not the only expert. In fact, if anything, you're going to lean really heavy on a lot of other people as experts.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you and I first started talking about this, you know, my idea is that you can't be a master of historical broadsword, right? But you could be a master of historical fencing in the sense of like coaching.
Yeah.
In terms of interpretation, because there are good and bad ways to interpret things.
Yeah. Giving lessons.
Because the core of what a master does is they teach. And so some of that you can borrow from texts that talk about it. Some of that we get from the modern world or from other sports. And so whatever is going to help you teach the basics, you know, the fundamental principles of distance, timing, judgment, speed, like the different things that we vary and play with, that the technique, you know, sort of sits on. And that, you know, that's how it's expressed. If you can teach those things, you can teach anything.
And we talked about this in a different conversation, but one of the things that we talked about was like how some of the masters that we worked with and coaches we worked with, when they were younger, they learned kind of a different style and they adapted it to teach a modern style. I think that same thing applies to interpretations, applies to historical fencing, is that like you can be a master of that, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be a master of the future. You have to keep on learning and keep on changing. So as you get more information, as maybe the sport game changes for HEMA, as we get new historical texts and we adapt things, it's lifelong learning.
Well, and I think we need to be okay with that.
Yeah. Whereas I think like what we were talking about before, kind of like the Kung Fu master kind of stereotype that people had of it, it meant that your knowledge was complete.
Right? You're done.
And a true master never that's a beginning phase of coaching. When you have a certificate where people are saying like, yeah, this guy's done it, that doesn't mean you know the whole game.
No, it doesn't mean you're the best in the world. It means that you have reached a level of teaching that is going to, in most cases, conforms to a certain sort of explicit list of things.
And that varies between program, it varies between region, it varies between style.
And that's okay too. You know, and I think it's the reason that coaches need to keep taking lessons. You know, every opportunity I have to take lessons from someone, especially when they're better than I am, I take it.
Right.
You know, I may frustrate them. They're like, Jim, this is simple. It's right and left, right? But I know, you know, I'm always very grateful for that lesson, and I learn more.
Yeah.
And it's the thing I used to say, like when I was teaching in college, like I you know, a teacher's first and last a student. You should always be a student.
Yeah.
Stay curious. Just keep thinking about this stuff. And even when I have an interpretation, like it hasn't come up a lot, but it'll change over time.
Yeah. Well, imagine if when you were a professor, or PhD, masters, you know, everything, right? These terms, you just stopped looking at research at one point, and you just taught them only the stuff you had learned when you were in college.
Which is horrible.
It would be, you couldn't do it.
You can't. You know, and I think one of the reasons, like in the program that I was in for history, there's a certain sort of base knowledge that you're supposed to acquire.
Yeah.
But the real test was your ability to stay on top of current scholarship and articulate that. And for me, like one of the reasons I was a bad fit for academia was that I didn't like the fact that in the fields I was in, there wasn't a lot of getting that out. It just felt kind of like a closed shop. And it's not that it doesn't, you know, people will publish books once in a while, but they're not popular reading. You know, if it's a monograph, like the stuff that I did for my dissertation, 3 people in the world are going to find interesting.
Right.
And they already know it.
Right.
So I don't need to write a monograph about this. Although I did find out there's a woman that contacted me. They're writing a book about the saint that I worked on.
Oh, cool.
And they asked me to
Was that when you did early church history?
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I sent her all my stuff. I don't know if it'll be useful, to be honest, but I'm like, yeah, you're welcome to it. Hopefully it's helpful.
Right.
I got a really sweet bibliography. I can say that. It's really impressive. But, you know, I had a point of view that I was working on for that, and maybe that'll help. But that scholarship, since I graduated, has changed.
Right.
You know, and if I were to try to teach it now, I'd have a lot of catching up to do. So yeah, I think, you know, going back to like like what would that be? And I think you know, any kind of master's is first and foremost, it's going to be a coaching program. And I think knowledge based, you can be a little bit more flexible. You know, like if you go through some of the established programs, like the USFA and the USA, they've got everything codified, and it's a pretty tough.
It's French terminology.
Yeah. And it's a pretty tough. It takes a long time. You know, there's a lot of practical time that you've got to put in. You can never have enough of that. And I think for us, you know, we could change some of that, right? One of the big differences between us and other groups is that historical fencers, a lot of the stuff starts in a backyard with the guy that just has the book.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
You know, and they just do the best they can.
Yeah.
And so if there are things in place to help them, that's going to be great. So let's say they don't have time to like work on all that, but there's like a master of historical fencing they can go to be like, hey man, I'm working on this stuff. That coach hasn't just looked at fencing, but they've looked at like how you read these texts. They can help them out.
Yeah, totally. Point them in the right direction.
Just point them in the right
give
direction.
them ideas.
Just be a resource.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's value in that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I think make people nervous.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, you know, I've gone on record as saying HEMA doesn't like academics.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of academics are dicks.
Right.
I mean, let's just be honest, they are. There's a host of reasons for that. Some of them are good reasons, some of them are bad. But it doesn't excuse the behavior.
Right.
And I think, you know, one of the sadnesses for me with that is that rather than go to people that could help them with some of this, they go to people who just like the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe they get it right, maybe they don't. But, you know, we have, you know, if I wanted to know more about like metallurgy, I go to a smith. So why wouldn't you go to a historian for history? I don't know. So I think there are ways we've kind of screwed up with that.
Right.
But any kind of program that you were to try to create that, you could give them sort of the rudiments of, okay, here's the type of texts. Here's the usual problems we run into.
Right.
Like one of my favorites is the Paris version of the Fiore text. It's got so many lacunae in it. It's like bits are missing.
Right.
And that's not an easy thing to deal with. Right. Even if it was it's in Latin, but even if it was in Italian, like you still may not know what those words are.
Right. Yeah.
We have other ones to compare it against, but they're all kind of different. So you have to own that and be like, this is a guess.
Yeah.
100%. You were duly cautioned. This is a guess on this first paragraph.
Yeah.
But I think there's value for that, and then it'll serve in other ways too. But I think the key thing is kind of making sure that any such program makes it absolutely clear what it isn't.
Right.
If your goal is just because you want people to call you Maestro, it's probably a bad fit.
Right.
I know you do this the same way I do. Like I'll be introduced that way sometimes, but in class, everyone calls me Jim.
Yep. For me, it's just Jay, or some people call me Coach. I don't go by Maestro.
I don't mind Coach.
Coach is good. Yeah.
But when I've been introduced at certain places, they'll use the title, and that's appropriate.
I think that's right for like formal teaching, and I think it's right for bugging each other.
Yeah, because it makes all of us kind of uncomfortable.
Yes, I think that's fun.
That is fun. I enjoy that.
Or I think when people are calling you out. Yeah. And you're just like, well,
there is this.
Yeah, there's this. That's it. Those are the only times.
Those are appropriate uses.
That's exactly it.
But it's
for vengeance or for formal introduction.
Formal introductions, yeah. Those are two very acceptable uses. But yeah, I think it's there. If you don't want to be a teacher, it's not for you.
Right.
If you don't have some interest in that, I think it wouldn't be for you. And let's be honest, like teaching fencing is not an easy task.
No, it's hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
You've got different personalities, different people with different bodies.
And you get turnover with students.
There's a lot of people that are, and you've got to be kind of resilient. I work with a lot of kids, and kids like, they'll be in for a year maybe, or 6 months or 2 weeks, and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah. Or they move away and they grow up, and
you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
It's harder with grown-ups sometimes, especially if you work with them for a while. If they're like, man, I'm just done.
Yeah.
They're like, man, was it me?
Right.
Did I turn them off?
Right. And then sometimes they show up years later when they're just at a different point in their life.
Or at other times it's just like, I know someone's a better fit.
Yeah.
And why would I try to, either fake, like, I'm going to teach you everything I know about longsword.
Right.
I've dabbled, but I don't have any business teaching it yet. I would want more training before I taught that. Just send them to somebody that does it.
Right.
And I think we need to be able to do that for one another. It is good for the community, and I've been lucky, where I live in Oregon, it's a pretty small community, but everyone kind of knows everyone. And for the most part, people are pretty supportive of one another. There's some squabbles about different things, but if somebody were having a hard time staffing a tournament, for example, people would help, right?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't expect to be paid or anything else for you.
Right.
You just help them.
Oh yeah.
Because it may be you next time.
Yeah.
And you want it to succeed. And the other thing too is like sometimes your approach isn't right for someone.
Yeah.
And I think any such coaching program, you give them the stuff they need to teach, but then how they teach that, you shouldn't dictate how that's going to be.
Yeah. Like I know people that wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Right. And also like I know places where I know I won't fit in, and I don't feel like I'm getting what I need out of that. I think it's important to recognize both, and it's like you can do that without devaluing somebody, and maybe it's a little bit devalued to you, right?
Maybe
you can do it without devaluing it to other people, or and
I think just being honest about it, right?
Of this is why it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, and this is why this does.
But if it's right for you, that's okay.
Yeah,
and I, one of the things that has bothered me in the past is when I've taken some classes with coaching fencing classes, the better ones start kind of with a principle or a technique, and they talk about effective ways to teach it.
Yeah.
But you're not held to teach it a certain way.
Right.
And there have been classes where I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's just, that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
But they'll say, no, you teach it this way.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, what if my student doesn't learn this way?
Mm-hmm.
And I work with a lot of kids who are on the spectrum. I work with people who have disabilities or just are old, or, they're not in the best of shape. And so I want to work with them as best I can. You're going to have to adapt it, and sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it fails miserably and you just try again. And I've got some wonderful stories of just absolutely screwing up in class, and you have to own it. Like I was teaching at Mike's school for a while, and I was trying to teach people. We were going through like a beginner saber class, and we were working on preem, and I'm going over here. People were struggling. I was like, man, why is this so hard? And then one of the guys, very smart guy, engineer, of course, it's like, can't make this work. It's like, okay, show me. And I realized I never told them to drop the point.
Oh, so they were keeping it out?
So they were going right over the weapon as it came in.
They were going over top.
And that's on me. And I was like, guys, everybody stop what you're doing.
Right.
We're going to go back to second, and you're just going to drop the point and sweep.
Right.
So just drop.
Right.
And we just went back and fixed it.
They could collect it.
But
then.
I was driving home, and I'm just like, can't believe I did that. I just forgot this most important thing.
Right.
But I did the best I could to fix it in the moment that it happened.
Yeah.
And going forward, I have never forgotten again.
Right.
I forgot other stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to screw up sometimes, and so it's part of the learning process. And we have to be willing to change, to learn new ways to do stuff, and we have to be kind to ourselves when we are learning it, because it's just, you're going to screw up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even on stuff you should know better. Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I kind of feel like a Masters of Historical Fencing is almost like a super program, and it's a lot more than just learning technique. And it's a lot more than learning principles.
Yeah.
You're learning sort of strategies for doing that. And I think one of the as we've talked about it, I think one of the things that would make it really robust is time spent with other teachers.
Yeah.
So that you don't just get the same view from the same people.
Yeah.
Not that that's bad. You can learn a lot from one coach. But even, with the masters I studied with, at a certain point, they, would send you to work with one of their coaches. Like, I've got a provost over here, go work with them. It's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And one of the things that my coach used to say is always is like, take every chance you can to work, even if you don't like them, even if you don't like 99% of what they do, and you learn one thing that you're like, okay, I like that, I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
He's like, it was worthwhile for that one thing.
It was.
And I found that to be so true.
I think it's true too. And the other side of that is that I think there's something to be said for learning to deal with disappointment. And the reason I say that is that fencing can be very disappointing.
Right.
You can train, go to a tournament and just get bageled and knocked out of the first pool.
And do everything perfect.
You can do everything right.
Perfect, yeah.
There are just going to be days like that.
Yep.
And some days you're really on, some days somebody else is.
Yeah.
And I think the ability to kind of be like, okay, this was rough. Let's move on. What did I get out of it? What did I learn? And I think the more we do that as students, as coaches, as competitors, the better we get at it.
Oh yeah.
And we learn best when we're calm, when we're not beating ourselves up or beating up anyone else or blaming them. It's just like, okay, this didn't work. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I've had some lessons that I did not enjoy at all.
Silent ones or otherwise?
Well, this one was, I won't name names, but I had a lesson with a Hungarian guy. It was the only t-shirt lesson I ever had.
Oh no.
Very old school.
Did you get whooped?
Oh, I got striped hard.
Oh no.
I mean, this is Olympic sabers. This is in the 90s, but there was a visiting coach from Hungary. And my master's like, hey, I want you to go work with this guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak English. So it was basically a silent lesson. He spoke by striking me.
Right.
And so I grabbed my jacket. He's like, and I was like,
well, I've seen those old videos of them without masks and just bare chested too.
Right. And I was like, if there's no mask, I'm out. Like,
yeah.
I got to be able to see. So, I get my mask and I held up the glove. He's like, wear the glove. I'm putting the glove on, man. And basically, we worked on parry 3 for probably 40 minutes. And by the end of the night, this entire part of my arm was just swollen.
So why would he do a thing like that? That's crazy.
I'll tell you what, though, that parry 3, I had that so down after that. And
it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
Not the way I'd do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like if somebody asked me for a t-shirt lesson, I'm like, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
First of all, my insurance would cancel on me.
Right.
Right. But there are better ways to teach that.
Right.
And he was just an old school Hungarian. That's just how it was going to be done.
A story that Steve used to tell me was he had 2 coaches when he was a young man. One of them was Bob Anderson. The other one was Mike Law. And they were both, I think they were on an Olympic team together at some point for men's, it was foil potentially.
I'm not sure.
But they had both done their masters together. He said watching them fight was just amazing because they knew everything that the other person was going to do. It was really very entertaining. But Bob was the nicest person you'd ever meet. And Mike was the meanest person. He would say, like, when you go out there, I want you to picture my face on the opponent. Like, he was intentionally mean.
Yeah.
And Steve said, I learned something from both ways. He's like, I like the nice way better, but there is something to be said about the mean way because it was effective.
It is.
It is. Well, it's not good. And,
no, I don't like it.
If you induce anxiety on people and you induce anger, I think their performance goes down because exploration is best done under low anxiety circumstances.
Yeah.
But that said, you do need to learn how to tolerate. And sometimes the best fencers end up being people with chips on their shoulder.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That are out there to prove something.
No, it's true. And it's one of those weird things that if you're one of those people that absolutely has to win because your self-worth depends on it, you're going to win.
Yeah. Well, look at Mike Tyson, right? He was the most fragile dude crying and stuff like that. But because he had that big chip on his shoulder and it was not just about that, he was one of the most gifted fighters of all time.
Right? And I mean, it's a tough thing. And I think, this is a little off topic maybe, but one of the harder things about any combat sport is that, you're teaching people how to hit other people.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to do that as much as possible without damage. But, there are those people out there. And I remember we had kind of an unspoken rule until it came up and then it was a spoken rule. But like when we were competing, there were people out there that wanted to intimidate you and they would just hit super hard or they hit below, the jacket, hit you right in the ass.
Damage your fingers, do stuff like that.
And so our rule was you never let them know how much it hurts.
Yeah.
You just give it back.
Right. And
9 times out of 10, the moment we did, they just cried like babies. Because it works, when a bully is bullying, it's fine until they get it back.
Right.
Right. And so I remember there was one kid, who just kept hitting my buddy like right across the ass with this cut. And those, if you're wearing like, fencing knickers and you're getting hit with an S2000, it hurts.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had this one blade, I forget, it was a Polish made blade. It was blue, like gunmetal blue. Literally you could do this with it and it would snap back. And so John just said, give me the blue one. I was like, oh shit. And I watched him literally go from like this guard to this guard.
Right.
And he just hit him right on the shoulder and just came forward and it just wrapped all the way around. You could see the kid just yelp.
Right.
And he, you're not supposed to take your mask off back in the day.
Right.
He just rips it off and he looks at the director. He's like, point it right. And sir, what are you talking about? He's like, you've been hitting him in the ass. You've been hitting everybody in the ass all day long.
Right.
And now you're going to complain because you get striped.
Right.
Point right.
Yeah.
And so that was after that he just folded. So John said I could do anything I wanted to after that.
Right.
Would I want somebody to do that? Would I encourage them? No. But again, in competition things are different. And
it's different.
We wanted to win.
Yeah.
And these guys weren't bad. They were just mean.
Right.
So we'll just out mean them.
Mm-hmm.
And John went home and iced his butt. But it's I get it. I as much as possible I try to embrace the nice part.
Yeah.
Especially since I work with kids. And there are just rules about that.
Yeah, and that's the majority of people you encounter are generally positive experiences.
And they are. I've had very few bad encounters. The worst one I had, happily, he did not like what I was doing. Mm-hmm. It was not tough enough for him. Mm-hmm. It was not macho. and he took off, and I couldn't have been happier.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, good riddance.
Yeah.
And that was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, sometimes it means stuff works. I don't like to say it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you.
Man. Yeah. I hope some of it's like making sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, this is really good. I think there's a lot people can learn from you, and I think there's a lot of folks that maybe haven't heard of you yet or anything like that are watching the channel. But I think from the beginning, like how I think we started talking was you started the group Military and Classical Saber.
Yeah.
I think that's when we started talking a little bit more.
Yeah. So a friend of mine in Portland, Vila, had like created the page, and she and I had worked a little bit together at this one school. And I think that's where we met.
Yeah.
And I remember there was something that came up. I needed to talk to a broadsworder, like a dedicated broadsworder. And so I asked you, and you gave me some really good stuff. And I was like, that guy, he's pretty okay. And that's actually how we became friends, you know? And
I think you and Patrick were both two of the guys that really influenced me to start doing like sport.
Really?
Fencing and classical fencing.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was and that was like right as I was about to start, because I'd heard some stuff, but I was learning like straight HEMA, and everyone had a really negative perception of that. And so I was told not to do it.
Yeah.
And then you guys were like, no, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Like you can go to it doesn't have to be classical.
No.
You can go just get clean fencing anywhere. And as long as it's clean fencing, you'll do fine.
And that's the thing, you know, and even if you go to the most sportiest of sports schools, you're still going to come out of there with better footwork, better sense of distance, timing, things you'll have to change. If you're a foilist, you're going to have to learn how not to do this. Right?
I remember going for my first lesson. My first one was with Livio and then with Emma. And it was like, man, like I don't know anything. I realized I have no clue what I'm doing compared to these people. I saw Livio get into his cool, deep Italian stance. I'm like, this guy would kill me.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for like 10 years at this point.
That's a hard place to be. You know, I think one of the things that, if I can embarrass you on your own podcast,
you can.
that really impressed me was, you know, you talked a little bit about that, not in I think super depth, but like I was aware of the fact that you were having this kind of moment of crisis where it's like, I've been doing this a while. Yeah. And I've just realized this. And a lot of people would be like, I'm out.
Right.
Like this, I've wasted 10 years. I'm not wasting anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it said a lot to me that you were like, I'm going to start over. And I'm going to start over here with something that's super hard.
Right.
But you can almost date, like, if, you know, looking back, you can probably do it now, right? Like you look at that decision tree and then you look at where you've come now. I
had a different mindset because I'd already done like, at that point when I started, I had already done a bachelor degree.
Yeah.
And I had this idea in my head that whether I was working towards something or not that would make my life better, the time would pass anyway. So my idea was like, hey, like whether or not I take these lessons, whether or not I learn the hard lessons or do the stuff I don't want to do, 10 years will go by. Do I want to be the same in 10 years or do I want to be better in 10 years? Right?
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it.
It's been like maybe, I don't know. I think it's been like
almost
close to 10 years.
Yeah, it has.
Right? Yeah. That I've been doing like weekly lessons all the time. And it's like,
it shows.
And I'm still learning every single time I'm there. I'm like, I'm working with Coach Robert right now.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Awesome.
And it's like German epee. And he'll be like, you're not leaving your hand out long enough after the recovery. And it's something Patrick had said to me. It's just something that's my original coaches taught differently. Yeah. So and every time they're like, it's okay, like you can do it your way. And I'm like, no, I want to learn it your way because now I'll have two ways of doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a really responsible way to do it.
Right.
And it's hard. It's hard to do that. It's hard to say, you know, you don't want to ever think that you've wasted that time, but you haven't. Those 10 years were well spent.
Oh yeah, I learned the sources. I learned a lot of stuff, and I still use some of that stuff in sport fencing or in the way that I teach now. And it wasn't a waste.
No, not at all.
It even got me passionate. It got me to know people that were in the community. Sure. It helped me build a club. Right, did all these things. Right, I just had to learn the skills.
Well, and that's something we just have to spend the time doing it. Yeah, you know, and just. You know, you're going to stumble some. It's a really highly technical thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and but you just do it. You just keep going back, and it does get easier. Yeah. You know, I remember being really frustrated when I started. Like, I just felt like I would never be able to figure out parry or post.
Right.
This sounds hilarious, but I was like, how the hell am I ever going to know they're going over here?
Right.
How am I going to know?
It was just overwhelming.
It was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And the one day we were, I was doing some drills and it finally clicked and I realized I did it automatically. I was like, oh,
right.
Oh, that worked. And it was kind of that thing that's like, I'm almost trying too hard. My expectations are off. They're just, like, I just need to chill out.
Yeah.
And just learn.
Yeah. Emma was one of the first things. She was like, you have one distance for your lunge. You're lunging when you don't need a lunge. You have one single distance. And I was like, yeah, I guess because I learned from a book, I was like,
yeah,
I was always trying to mimic the picture when I lunged, if that's what a lunge should look like. She's like, there's 5 different ranges for a lunge and you have to get everyone correct. And I was like, what? Really?
Yeah.
She's like, no, there is.
Yeah.
And
She's
so you start there. You start there with that. Yeah, great coach. Yeah. And the same thing with Steve. Like right away, Steve was like, okay, let's just do a lesson.
Right.
And you show me what you know. And he's like, okay, I've picked 2 things that I want to work on with you. He's like, first one is sequence, like getting your arm correct first. And the second thing is open eye.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, and what does that mean?
Yeah.
And he showed me like making decisions, pause to make decisions.
Yeah.
And from day 1 all the way to the last lesson he gave me, it was always pause to make decisions, be patient, pause to make decisions.
And that's so hard to learn, but it's so important.
And I learned it to some degree. And then you realize there's like even more depth to that. And like, working with Tim Guarino, working with Francesco.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is what Steve was trying to teach me. And you're adding depth. And now it's like a second intention game, or like even deeper than that, where it's just like probing all the time. Right. And changing in the moment.
And if you think about like just that analogy there, right? You've got these, handful of coaches you worked with who are very different coaches from one another.
Yeah, totally different.
But all of them get it. They understand this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So you work with Francesco, you get one way. You work with Emma, you get another. But, together, like your ability to use those skills is just going to deepen. And you realize like, okay, if I got better doing this with these 5 coaches, what if I go work with those 5?
Right. Yeah.
And you just kind of get like, not addicted, but it's like you want more.
Yeah.
How much deeper can I go?
Right.
That's exciting.
Yes.
It keeps, I think, part of the coaching, it keeps it from getting like mundane and rote.
Oh yeah. Because I could just do the same exercises all the time.
You could.
And people would get better and you see the progress in them, right?
But you need to stay engaged, and one of the things that's infectious, I think, for some people is your passion about it.
Oh, thank you.
And like one of the things I love about your videos is they're either really funny, which I absolutely lose it every time. I mean, I know your sense of humor, so it's easy for me, but they're really funny.
Oh, thank you.
Some of the clips that you put up, and I like the variety. So you've got some where it's just like you and Wyatt playing around, or it's Wyatt teaching Silver.
Yeah.
Or it's part of your lesson. You're being taught something. And so it's a nice way to see like, okay, here's the life of a fencing coach.
Right.
He's teaching, he's working with another coach on something who he's doing a deep dive on Silver. So I'm going to work with him.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take lessons from Emma.
Yeah.
And it's a healthy way to look at it. And so in terms of kind of, if there was a like bring your dad to school kind of day for HEMA, it's like, okay, what do you do as a coach? Well, here it is.
Right.
This is what I do. I teach people and I learn and we play and then we go to tournaments and have a great time. And,
I'm going to do it till I can't anymore.
Yeah. And you will do it till you can't.
Yeah. And even then, even then, once Steve couldn't do it anymore, he would sit there, we'd have coffee. Yep. He'd give me guidance for the program. He'd watch my videos and give me feedback on how to coach.
Yeah.
And we just talk, and then it's like, it's something that like, it was one of those things that for him, that was like what captured his interest in life was that and science. He was a scientist,
Yeah.
And I know that's going to be one of the things for me. Maybe that and mental health or social work, those are the things that I love.
Yeah. And I think, that's, we all reach an age where we don't, I mean, if you're lucky, you can teach. Like I've been really lucky. I had 2 coaches that were coaching in their 90s, or at least one into his 80s. And I've met a fencer who just turned 90 who can lunge better than I can. Some people just have the genes.
That's insane.
And didn't make as many mistakes as I did, you know. But when you care about something that much, like you find a way. And Steve clearly, like even just talking about it was a way of teaching.
Yeah.
And you stay engaged that way. And I know for me, like it's been a hard shift focusing more on coaching than my own fencing.
Yeah.
That's been hard,
I
but
believe that.
I don't want to quit.
No,
I can't.
Well, it's bringing so much value to everybody because,
And
like,
I hope
nobody
so.
could fence without coach.
No, and I'm like, all I can do is my best for them.
Yeah.
And hopefully that helps some of the people. And, I've been sort of gratified that there's, at least I've got a core group of people that seem to really value it.
Right.
But I'm already helping, like, you should go work with Jason down in Corvallis, or, you should go work with this guy. Cause, I've met some of these other coaches and I'm like, he's really good.
Right.
And you'll get something different from him.
Yeah.
And he's younger than I am. And there's just things I can't do.
Right.
Or shouldn't do, I should say. I can do them once, but I want to be able to coach the next day. I can't, I've got to kind of behave myself. And I'm hoping, like, I've got this idea that we'll see if it comes off, where I can start kind of training so that I could maybe jump into some like old person competitions.
50 plus.
Just because I want
to
do it again. It's just so much fun. And I don't even care if I win or lose. Like, I just want to compete sometimes,
just have a goal.
Yeah. Just something.
Yeah.
And I miss the camaraderie of all that. Like a good, proper tournament.
Yeah. It's something you go through together.
Yeah. You know,
and it's harder in some ways. It's harder than other combat sports, right? Because it's like, when I go to a tournament and you're fencing, like maybe, I don't know, I can't remember how many it was at nationals, like maybe 12 fights in a day,
wow. Okay.
Right? In one day. Maybe you do two tournaments in a day, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of problem solving.
It is.
Yeah. It's really difficult.
It is. And there are ways that some physical attributes aren't going to help you the same way.
Yeah.
Like, when I was doing competitive Taekwondo, like early 80s, that was a, different world. And there were things like, if you weren't able to do like the technical action that you wanted, you could just brutalize the other person.
Yeah.
Right. And, we didn't have a lot of the padding that they developed.
No,
and so
you didn't. It was a different sport. It was almost more like Kyokushin is now.
Yeah. Right.
Like it was.
Yeah.
It was not
we had
this
some
Taekwondo.
Padding, but like, I think I was, I'd had a second broken nose and ribs by the time I was 14, and that, never mind getting kicked in the head a bunch. Like, I can only imagine what kind of like math genius I might have been. I'm kidding. I would never have been a math genius. But it's like that. There's certain things you can do that you couldn't do in fencing without really, really hurting someone.
Yeah, yeah.
And that problem solving is a big part of it. And that's something we teach too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Let's wrap it there. Real nice chatting with you. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.